But speaking of, well, on a lighter note, I should say, D-Generation X is reuniting in Brooklyn on October 10th at the Barclays Center. This will be the 25th anniversary of them together as a faction, and this will also mark the 3-year anniversary since they were inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2019. It is not a coincidence that the return will be happening at the same arena that they were making their Hall of Fame induction in, which is the Barclays Center. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. I expect some raunchy jokes. I expect some surprises. Something funny is going to happen if Sean and Hunter are in the ring. Um, but I wanted to know, how would you rank D-Generation X amongst wrestling's top factions? And if you were to comprise a modern day faction that was DX esque, D-Generation X, yeah, D-Generation X like, if you will, and you can get wrestlers from any company, who would those talents be? But starting with the first question, how would you rank them as far as top wrestling factions?
They have to be like the greatest of all time, and it's like it's because individually, just the the work that Sean and Triple H has put into this company is just it's just untouchable. Like no one's
Mm,
ever gonna do it like them. No one's ever gonna have the range like they did, and they were there for like everything.
mm,
They were the flagship faction they used during WCW versus WWE or whatever. Like they were there for it all. And even though they age and stuff like that, it's like a faction that people still reference. The older generation, our generation, even people like my nephews, when they watch wrestling, they reference them. You know what I mean? Because their group had a lot of just range between, yeah, the goofiness and the perverted and stuff like that. They entertained the hell out of you when it came into their in ring stuff, but no one's gonna do it like a Sean and a Triple H. I feel like there are other factions that, yes, I do feel like built this company up, but this is the one where it's just like it's a stick where you probably like if you said it out loud to a random person what they do, you would think that all right, this is probably like something that's gonna die off in like a short amount of time. But they literally made that stretch out for all these years. Like no one's ever gonna turn down a DX reunion because it's just
absolutely.
so nostalgic and it was always with the times. That's what I loved with Sean and Triple H. It was a faction where I love how they were able to navigate whether it was PG or not. Like they were still able to make us laugh extremely hard. Like their duo was just so funny. It was like a Beavis and Butthead
Hmm.
almost like relationship that they had. And then of course, back then it was larger and we had people like China and X Pac and all that stuff like that. But I just feel like they are the most impactful um faction, and I just wouldn't want to replicate them because I don't think anyone's ever going to do them as much justice as a Sean or a Triple H. There are people who remind me of them briefly, but it's just like, why would you even want to like recreate that? It's like, let that be its own thing. I mean, if you guys want to like pay a little bit of homage, that's nice, but it's just like y'all are never going to, especially with the way this generation is and the way that society is lined up and how you can't say certain things and get away with certain jokes. There's no way you're gonna be able to replicate a DX. Like,
Hmm.
it's just not gonna happen. What do you think?
I agree with you 1000%. I think that D Generation X belongs up there as far as the past 25 years as the most influential faction. A lot of people say it's the NWO, and you can make a case for that. But if we're talking about raunchy, rule breaking, rebellious, DX is the standard, because while NWO was doing it, DX made it cool. DX made it fun. DX like made it like they I don't even know the words to describe it, but D Generation X made the rebellion look fun. And then on top of that, I feel like when we talk about a DX reunion, I think that we need to keep in mind that it is in route with the times. And anytime this faction has been able to reunite at whatever point in history, it's never felt out of place. Like we talk about what they did in 97 coming together, and then their new iteration in 98 when Sean left, and then a new iteration in the 99 and 2000 when it was like them being tied to the McMahons. And then when they came back in '06 to go against the McMahons and Sean and Hunter were a tag team, it never felt out of place. DX has been the only, or probably one of the only factions where they have been able to reform, reunite, and adapt to whatever the current wrestling climate was, and it worked. There was a point in time where, like, Shawn Michaels is a born again Christian, right? And there were things that they were doing in the '06 reunion, like where Hunter would be the one to take the charge of the rebellion and Shawn would have to like dip off a frame. But you never thought of it as out of place. It was like, okay, this works. This works. This still works. So I think that Shawn and I think that DX is definitely one of the most, if not the most influential faction of all time. And we don't even take into account the individual body of works that all of these
Yeah.
wrestlers have composed of. When we talk about China, first ever woman to hold the IC title, as well as a former women's champion, God rest her soul. We talk about the New Age Outlaws, who are one of the most decorated tag team champions of all time. We talk about Pac, and then we talk about even Billy individually, because at one point he was going for a push. We talk about those guys individually, and then Hunter, and then Shawn as individuals. Like, the individual resumes are Hall of Fame careers all on their own. And then together it's just so much more iconic. And I kind of align with you in the sense of like, well, I don't think that they should have like there shouldn't be another DX. But there are certain wrestlers that remind me of what was happening in DX in their prime. Rhea Ripley reminds me of China a lot,
Yeah.
especially in this
Yeah.
era where of her being in Judgment Day and whatever may have you. Rhea reminds me of China a lot. Um, the Acclaimed are modern day New Age Outlaws to me. They remind me of the raunchiness and the silliness that the New Age Outlaws have, and they do it kind of in
Fair
their own way.
assessment.
I don't
Yeah.
know who's a Hunter or a Shawn or an
Nobody.
X Pac, but those wrestlers in particular definitely give me DX vibes. But I'm very much looking forward to this D Generation X reunion on October 10th on Monday Night Raw. And of course, it's happening where? In Brooklyn.